So welcome to the second session in our Health Professions Canvas training series. Last week we talked about the Canvas build sort of overview, and this week we get into the first real topic, organization and settings. And this is really one of the more information dense sessions that I'll give, just a lot of little things to cover. So I will move through fairly quickly. As usual, it's informal. Please interrupt or post in the chat if you have any questions. A lot of people have very specific circumstances related to most of these choices. So I will be going through them to give you your options. And then of course, always schedule some time with me if you want to talk about maybe you've got something particular you're trying to accomplish. So you'll see I had started a poll to ask you what build method you were going to be using moving forward. And I really just do that to gauge, make sure everyone's taking the path of least resistance. So I'm happy to report, I'm going to end polling at this time, that no one is planning to clean out their entire Blackboard course. So that's really a good choice. It's one of the building fresh or copying parts that's going to help. So I will get started showing, I'm sharing my screen and there's some resources over here. The Canvas webpage from UIW has answers to most of your questions and gives you some information or ways to have services such as what courses are being migrated. All of 2020 will be copied into Canvas for you. If you want something outside of 2020, you can make that export request. So I will send a follow-up email as usual after the training with all of the links and a summary of some information just to keep you on track. I also want to point out everything that I will be using today, I've accessed through Cardinal Apps. You're familiar with this, just like Blackboard, and that's how I'm getting to Canvas. And that I have an asynchronous online resource I've put together and I'm still putting together. So I'm working on it as I move forward through this series. And I'm just going to take a second to show you that if I press the start button, it's got some categories. The first one being resources, the link to the webpage I had showed you, and some other information, just because I want to make sure you know where to get help and how to progress through what you're trying to accomplish. The second topic was last week's session, the course build overview. And as you scroll down the page, it's just a review of what I covered last week. If you weren't able to make it, we all have lots of scheduling conflicts. I totally understand. And I do want to make sure that you have access to that information. Everyone, that was here last week was thinking about a build method. And this is just going to show you, what a sandbox will look like if you take that route, what your academic shell will look like if you take that route. And then of course, what your Blackboard copy looks like. So just to give an overview of that. And then what I would say, in my opinion, is the best recording of the week for this Friday session's RSO's video is at the bottom, if you would like to review that. Now, pressing the continue button takes you to the organizations and settings, which is today's topic that's going to guide everything I'm going through. You'll see the other following sessions are coming soon. And again, that's me, sort of figuring it out as we go and making sure that I'm learning different circumstances that everybody has going on to get the most useful information out there. So I'm going to minimize this to the left and open up my Blackboard, my Canvas space to work on my Blackboard content. So you'll see I've got my three options. I've got my sandbox, my academic shell, and my Blackboard content. And I always want to take a moment to make sure that you're working in the correct course. So there's some clues on these dashboard. Summer 2021 term is going to be my academic space. It's going to say this. That's the course I want to be working in. So if you're already enrolled to teach for summer, you will see those in your Canvas space and they will say summer 2021. For other courses, you're going to see different information, right? Your Blackboard course might show something different and have the words Blackboard. Your fall 2020 Blackboard course, it will also indicate. So just make sure that you're going into the space that you intended to. When I open these courses up, my ID is going to be in the top left, but as I scroll down, all the courses are going to look the same. So as you're working, if you start to copy and paste, just make sure that you're doing that within the course you intended, because it can be very easy to get mixed up, copy it into the wrong course, and then those links won't work for those students because they won't be enrolled in the location that it was copied from. So that's the first topic. The second part I want to talk about is, are you teaching multiple sections? So if you log into your Canvas dashboard and don't see all of your courses, you can click the icon below the dashboard to see courses and check all courses. And let's just say, for example, I am teaching 3 sections of an optometry course. These are my 3 sections, we're going to pretend, and I don't want to manage 3 separate courses. I want to put them all together and I want to cross-list them. You're going to choose which course you want to be the parent, and it's entirely up to you. You have total control, and you're basically going to want to copy the parent course ID number that's at the end of the URL, whatever course it is that you chose, and I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to go into my 2 child sections, the ones I want to cross list into the parent, and I'm going to go into my settings. And when I open settings, the second tab at the top of the page is sections. And when I enter the section of what I'm about to make a child course into, I have the option to cross list. If I click that button and I paste my parent code and press enter, Canvas finds it for me to confirm, and then I can cross list this section by clicking the red button. That's it. That is the cross-listing process. Takes about 2 minutes. You just need to decide if it's something you're interested in or not. So I'm not going to cross-list these for real because they're not actual academic courses. I just wanted to use that for the demonstration. And then in this asynchronous resource, if you use it to review, this cross-list link is going to have an under 2-minute video that shows you what I just did in case you don't remember when it's time for you to do it. Okay, this third topic, how do I back up my Canvas course? So why would you want to back up your course? Well, sometimes as we're working through this process, we delete things and then we realize later maybe it was something we actually needed. If you don't make a backup, then you wouldn't have access to recover it. So it's a really simple process. You go into whichever course you want to make the backup of in settings. We're going to do a lot in settings today. And you choose export course content. And then click the red button to export your course. And it's going to run that process, and it's basically just going to make a Canvas specific package. It's going to save it on this page for 30 days for me. And if at any point in time I say, oops, I deleted something I didn't mean to, then I'm going to be able to come over here, download that package, and a delegate makes me a sandbox. I can restore it in, and it's all going to come back to me. Now, chances are you won't need it, so no need to download it and save it to your computer if you're planning on, completing the process in the 30 days. But you can obviously download, save it to your OneDrive for safekeeping as well. So this process may take a bit. It's going to do what it's doing, and it's going to send me an email when it's finished so I can leave and go about my business. Okay, so any questions about the 3 things we just did to kind of get ourselves started, making sure we're in the right courses, teaching multiple sections and how to cross list, which you want to do before you start building, and how to back up for safekeeping before we get started. Okay, everybody seems good. Again, don't hesitate to interrupt me. I'm going to jump into this next question. Do you need to clean any Blackboard content before you copy? So those of you who are planning to copy out parts of your Blackboard content, is there anything you need to do beforehand? Well, no, you don't have to, but I'm going to show you 5 things you can do to make it easier when you do the next step of copying into your sandbox or academic space. So the first one I have is go to Files. If you go to the Files section of your Blackboard copy, most of you, if you used Blackboard, moderate to heavy, you'll have a lot of stuff. This particular course has 5 layers of copies back to 2017. So there's a lot of information and a lot of good stuff in here, but there's also 5 copies of the UIW template information resting in this file space. That is going to get in my way as I work and move forward. So I'm going to actually go in and just delete it out of here. So as I scroll down, I'm looking for any sort of name of the course folders. So this one, Optometry 301, Section 1, and I'm going to go inside that folder. And I'm going to do that again. As I come down here, there's another Summer 18. And I'm going to do that again into Summer 17. And thankfully, I get here and I think, oh, I think I'm good. But there's another layer. And now I'm done. So now I'm to the very bottom. All of this is content I need, so I can go back up. And I'm going to go 1 level up in my breadcrumb at the top of the page. And I'm going to make sure all of this is good. And yes, this is all course content related. So I'm going to go up 1 more level. This one, nope, I've got template stuff. This file and this quality matters. I don't need either of these. So I'm going to go ahead and delete them. And now I'm going to go back up 1 more level. I'm going to do this again. Template files, quality matters. I don't need any of this. I'm going to delete it. And 1 more level to files and deleting it here. So most of you are not going to probably have this many layers, but it is possible depending on how things were handled in Blackboard. This is sort of kind of what happens. And I think I just have this 1 folder at the bottom, which I selected, and I'm now going to delete. So that was the files, and I'm going to do the same thing in assignments. I'm going to come over to assignments, and I'm going to have some things that were part of the template that I don't need. And I don't want them to be in my way, so I'm just going to delete the entire group. And it's going to say, what do you want to do with the assignments that are in it? Do you want to delete them? I do, because they are part of the template, and I don't use them. And now they're gone. And I can do this for every group that's empty. This is just the language Blackboard spoke and how it translated when it was copied into Canvas. And it made some extra stuff I don't need. Now, of course, I don't have to delete all of these things. When I go through the copy process, I can pick and choose. But the interface for picking and choosing the course copy is a little less friendly than seeing these pages this way. So that's why I like to make sure to cover that you do have the option to do these things in a little bit more user-friendly way. So I'm going to leave the announcements and go to quizzes and give you just a heads up on this area. So I don't have any quizzes in this course, but you might. And the 3 dots to the right of the quiz button is going to have manage my question banks. Question banks are automatically created when quizzes are created. So those copies within copies in Blackboard make quiz bank or question banks by default. So I deleted these 4 quizzes in my assignments area just a moment ago, but the question banks are residually still hanging out, and I don't want them. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete them. So you don't really need to worry about this if you don't use quizzes in Blackboard, and if so, you would never have question banks, and the template stuff you could just ignore. But if you do have question banks of some content, deleting the ones that aren't relevant just makes it a little bit easier for you to see what you're working on. The next one I'm going to look at is rubrics. So rubrics copied over, but I will say they do have some problems and they need to be reviewed very carefully. So making sure that your criteria and points possible is all in the right location before you roll them out for students. Now you'll see I have a duplicate of every single one of them. Well, I don't need the duplicate, so I can delete it. And you can go through and it's very easy to clean them up here. The next one and final is modules. Now, modules is really great because if I delete the information here, I'm going to narrow down quite a bit of information in my copy process. So this start here, it's empty. I don't need it. I can delete it. Getting started all came with that template we talked about. I don't need it. Blackboard student orientation will no longer be relevant, so it can be deleted. And I basically can just go through and get rid of quite a bit of stuff. And see, it's pretty fast, right? So it's not like it's going to take me a lot of time. Now, I know that there is some important information at the bottom of this section, even though most of it is not important. So I'm going to drag and drop and move the stuff I want to save out of this module that I'm about to delete. And I also know that there is the RSO student handbook. And so I'm going to take that too, just in case I actually want to keep it. And everything else in here, I've decided I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm going to delete this. And you're probably at this point wondering, why on earth is she doing this? I'm about to show you. It's really going to pay off when I get to my copy process. So basically, I've got nothing else in most of this except content I want to keep until I get down to the plagiarism checker, which I'm going to get rid of. I'm going to get rid of Zoom for now. And then I have more of that template stuff. Samples that I don't need, instructions that I don't need. And almost done. And taking the 10 minutes or so that it takes to do this step will really make your copy process a lot cleaner, and it makes it a little bit less difficult to figure out what it is you're trying to keep. Okay, matters. I'm deleting, just a lot of deleting of stuff I know I don't need. Okay. Now this is the 4th course that I've worked on this week, and it has by far the most information than any of the others. So you may actually get into your Blackboard copy and find that you don't have as much to do, and that's a great thing. Okay, so now that I've done this, I've gone through and I've cleaned up some of that extra mess in that Blackboard copy just to make it easier to import parts of it into my sandbox and my academic course shell. So it doesn't matter which way you're going to be working. I'm going to show you both. First, I'm going to go into the sandbox. It's empty. I'm going to come to my settings and I'm going to say import course content. And I've already done this process twice in the demonstration last week. So now I'm going to actually select content. What I did when I cleaned out all of those modules was I made this section much more easy to pick and choose from. And now I know that I cleaned out the stuff I didn't want. So I'm going to select all of it with one click. I know I want to keep all of my assignments. Even though I didn't finish cleaning them up, it's okay. I'm going to do that for my homework before next week. I'm going to keep my question banks. Actually, I'm not, because remember we decided those were the templates, so I can ignore them. I know that my discussion topics are part of the template, so I'm going to ignore these two. It's just some things that were left behind. 144 pages, I'm actually going to ignore. And the reason I'm going to do that is because the pages that are in my 10 modules that I decided to keep are going to copy with this package, even though I didn't select the pages. So Canvas, if you have pages in a module, it will pull those. Now, of course, if some of these 144 pages are not in a module, I would need to find which ones I needed in order to be able to save them. But I can always come back, find what I need, and do the process again. So you don't have to do it in one sitting. I'm going to copy my announcements in case there's any content that I want to reuse. I'm going to maybe go through my rubrics. I did not finish cleaning them out, but maybe there's some information in here that I might want to keep, and I can just select those since I didn't finish cleaning them on the page. I could just put some check marks. And then the files area, I'm actually going to select all of that. And the reason I'm going to do that is because there is no way to know what parts your files are connected to, and Canvas doesn't always grab all the folders that you've made links to in the other areas. So even though it's smart to know the difference between what pages it needs for modules, it's just better to copy your files just for safekeeping. So I'm going to say select content, and that process is going to run. It's now in the queue, and it's going to do that. Now, let's say you're working in your academic shell. So in my academic shell, I have some blueprint components we talked about last week that help make sure everyone has the components of a high quality online course. They've been put together for you. I'm going to do the exact same thing, and I'm going to copy that information from Blackboard in the exact same way. So I go to import course copy, I select to copy a course. I find the one I want to take my information from, which is my Blackboard content. I want to select specific content, and I want to click the import button. And then again, I'm going to choose that information like I just walked through for the sandbox area. The only difference between working in a sandbox versus your academic shell, and I'm going to show you that here. Well, I say I'm going to show you that here. But the only difference is that your sandbox does not have the blueprint pieces, and your academic shell does. So let's say, for example, you're building in your sandbox, and there's some parts of the academic shell blueprint that you are going to want to use. You're going to leave those until last, wait for your academic shell, and then work on those in that space. And why we are asking you to wait instead of copying some of this into here is that it really has difficulty talking in the back end when you try to copy the same stuff with the same stuff, and it makes those duplicates that we're now seeing need to be cleaned up from Blackboard. So just the heads up on that one. So any questions about this process so far? How you're going to get your information into the space you're working? Okay.
Melissa,
yes.
Going back to when you started with files, I believe, and you kind of drilled us down layer by layer, level by level, and then we went all the way to the bottom, and we came back a level at a time, and then I think you were deleting like things that said the word template and maybe quality matters.
Yes.
Are those the only two things we're really kind of looking for? And then, so that's one question. And the other one is could I not, instead of going all the way down, just come back up, could I not, does it matter if I went and started at the top level and saw the word template and quality management, just delete it and then just drill down once? Or
The order does not matter at all. I went in the direction that I went because I'm not as familiar because this isn't my course. So how you process and work through it is flexible for you. It's your course, so you're probably going to be able to pick and choose what you want or want to delete very easily. You do not have to just pay attention to template and quality matters. You really can clean up anything you want, but you can also copy it over into your sandbox and clean it there. It really just kind of depends on you. What I can tell you right here, I'm looking at these files. I know for a fact that this was just somebody uploaded it twice. We don't need the second one. And the way I know that is because they are exactly the same size. There's no way that this is a different version. So I could delete that. Now, if I had copied over to my sandbox or my academic shell first, the intact structure would still be over here in my Blackboard copy. So that's sort of, if you do the copy out process before you do the cleanup, you can leave all of it over here in case for whatever reason there's something you might want to come back to restore.
thank you.
Absolutely. So I covered copying or deleting, copying without and deleting the quality matters and template stuff, because that is the generic, I know for sure everyone has it. It was part of the way the Blackboard courses were built, and it's just going to be a standard across the board. So I want to make sure that I pointed out, I know that that's the stuff that you can remove unless you're using it, and only you will know that. Okay, so we clarified a little bit on cleaning up files and copying, clarified a little more on working in our sandbox versus our academic shell and the blueprint components. The next part I want to talk about even more, so we just started to touch on it, is organizing your files and naming all of your documents sustainably. So this is important because now that I've done my copies, I'm done with my Blackboard, I'm going to actually work in my sandbox, and I'm going to just keep cleaning it up even more. I can go through and I can say, okay, duplicates I need to get rid of. I don't need that. But there's some other strategies you can use to stay organized. First off, I recommend creating a folder. And if you name it Blackboard content, and you press the check mark to save it, you can then select all, hold your control key to unselect that folder, and then use the move button to put everything that's in this course inside this Blackboard content. And now you've just basically given yourself a clean place to start working without breaking the links to where those documents are going in other parts of your course. At this point, you can use the search and the folders to get even more organized. So most people use files hidden from students as a place to keep their materials, and then you link those files into pages and modules and quizzes and assignments and announcements and discussion boards, right? Wherever out there that students are working and you want them to get a hold of it. Well, when you do that, you get the liberty to organize your file section however you want. Whereas your course, you really are, it's more recommended to organize for student ease of navigation. Back here, you can do what works for you. Now, I find it's very convenient to create a folder for my PowerPoints. And then I know where they are. You might find it's more convenient to build it like your course, module 1, and all of the stuff that you put in module 1 could go inside that folder. Either way, you have options, and you're going to hide files from your students, so it's not really important for them. It's really for your use. At this point, I can use the search feature and I can put in PPT, I can press enter, and every PowerPoint in this course has now come up. I can select all of them and I can move them into my PowerPoint folder. And so I just have I have a lot of ways that I can move this information around, figure out what I need, delete what I don't. And then I also have access control in my file structure. So what does that mean? You've got two ways to get to it. You've got the check mark here you can press and it will pop up. Or after you've selected something, be it a folder or a file, you can select the button Manage Access in your toolbar at the top. You can unpublish items. Let's say you want to keep quiz keys in your file structure. You never want to show students the quiz keys. You would leave them unpublished. Then if a link was accidentally placed somewhere else in the course, they wouldn't be able to open it at any time because it's not published. And then you've also got schedule availability. You can put in the date and time you want the link to work, as well as the date and time you want the link to stop working. So you really have total control over what happens out in the student-facing parts of your course when you're working in the files area. You also have the ability to update documents. So let's go into this Blackboard content here and let's look for this cardiovascular lab document. I'm going to select it and download it to my computer. And I'm going to open it with Word. And give me just a second so that it can open up. So now you can see there's some information. I'm going to enable editing, and some of this information has changed. Maybe there's a step 6 I need to add. Maybe there is some spelling errors. Maybe I have new pictures I want to include. Whatever your changes are, you go ahead and you make those changes. And then you save as the exact same name that you downloaded it from Canvas with. Don't add a version 2 to the end of it. Don't put a date. Just leave the name exactly the same. I'm going to put this in a place I can easily find it in my downloads. And I'm going to say save. It's telling me I need a new file format. That's okay. So I've done that. And now when I come up back to my Canvas course and I upload that document, it's the same one, same name. I've just made changes. Canvas is going to ask me if I want to replace it. And what that feature does is anywhere that file was linked throughout your course, replacing it will update that everywhere that it's linked. It's really a great feature if you name your if you name your documents accurately without numbers, without dates, in a way that they can be reused. Then you can simply replace documents when you need to update the information in this back area, and all the rest of your course is fixed. Now, let's say that that's not for you. You really want to have a date. You want it to say Cardiovascular Lab 2021. You can do that, but when you upload that new version with the new number, you're going to have to go wherever else you've placed it in the course and fix the link to point to that new document. Okay, so that's pretty much creating folders, renaming files, moving files. You can use your move button. You can download them. You can manage access, and you can preview them. Right. So those are your tools back here. Setting file restrictions, again, you do all of that in this area, and then when you put the link somewhere else, students will get the appropriate message that that file is not available at this time. Now, what do you do about large files such as narrated PowerPoints and videos? So I'd like to take a minute to talk about this because it's really part of your course management and how it's going to work well for you. So I'm going to go show you at the bottom here. My content is not taking up much space, right? I'm doing pretty good. It's a lot of small files. Give it a minute to load. And I'm going to show you these 4 files here are actually video files. Now, they are better off handled in a video storage platform where you embed them in Canvas. So they're being hosted somewhere else. They don't take up any space in your Canvas course, but they also play better for the student experience. So you have several options. For large files, I'm going to make this screen a little larger. I've got them pulled up for these examples. Large files like PowerPoints, you can put in OneDrive, get a shared link that doesn't allow editing, and then place it in Canvas. For your videos, however, Stream is going to be one option. Echo 360 is going to be a second option, and there will be more information and training available on Echo 360 in the next few weeks. And then for short videos, you're going to have Studio, which is actually a feature inside of Canvas. So you can see here, I've got one 7-second video uploaded as an example. And then you can also create folders in your library. So let's say you're teaching optometry 301, and you're going to create that folder. And then all of your videos for this course, if there are 10 minutes or less, would go in this space. So full-length videos in Stream or Echo 360, and short videos in Canvas Studio. And all of this information is right here in the asynchronous resource with instructions on getting you started with no matter which platform you've decided to go with.
Question.
Yes.
If we create videos in Studio, will that take up some of our space in Canvas? Will that be using the 2 gig space?
There are limits that this is hard to answer. It does not affect your 2 gig course space, but it does have limits. And that's why we say those 5-10 minute quick videos go there. But it's more of an institution space in that area, not your specific course area. So large videos do not go in Studio. That will not work. 5 to 10 minute videos, yes.
Thank you.
Great questions. Anybody else? So that's really files and covering that backend area completely. The next topic we'll jump over to is pages. I'm going to open up my pages, and you'll remember when I did this course copy, there was 114 pages available. And as you can see, I only have a handful here. Now, let's say I'm missing something. I got to come back over to my Blackboard, copy. I open up my pages here, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm missing some stuff. You can still find what you need, and you can do another course import and copy that stuff as well. You can also, if you'll notice, I can copy to right here on this page. So if I use that option, I can come in this one, it'll open up a drop-down menu. I have a lot of courses, so it has to think really hard. And I can find my RSO sandbox, and I can select it, and I can tell it which module I even want to put it in, if I want to put it in a module. So you can do that right here off this page. How do you delete pages you don't want? Well, if you select it and you hit the trash can, or unselected, you can also come to the 3-dot snowman and click delete. If you are working in modules, you will notice that modules only allows you to remove items. So it will say remove. That means it's removing it from the module, and then you go to the actual location of that particular item, this being a page, this one being an assignment, and you manage those in their respective areas. So again, publishing, that's going to be something you were able to do on the file and folder level. And then you also have items throughout the course that you can also control whether or not students see them at this time. So it's always just going to be selecting, making sure that green check. If you don't publish, students will not be able to see it. Now, important to consider renaming your pages before you start building the rest of your course. So in web development, renaming things can mess with hyperlinks. Your whole Canvas course, just like Blackboard, is a collection of hyperlinked items working together. So if you plan to name things differently, start with that, change the names, and then the next 3 sessions, we're going to be talking about building and organizing our stuff into the student's experience. All your stuff will have the names that you need ready to go, and then you reduce the risk that at the end, when we quality check, that there are broken links. And there's a question in the chat. Would you recommend uploading the PDFs on the modules of Canvas or linking them to our OneDrive as best practice for Canvas and student navigation speed, or something else that you might not be thinking about yet? That's a really good question. So I think that cloud storage and being able to link into Canvas is a great feature for certain needs. However, it really depends on what the PDF is. So if you've got a PDF of course-related information and it doesn't change regularly and you want it to just be a static resource that students access, go ahead and upload it to your Canvas files and put it in a module rather than linking it from OneDrive. Because basically what you're going to be doing is creating a package of resources that are taught with this particular term and section or cross-listed course. Now, again, there's a lot of other use cases. So if you've got a dynamic amount of information, so you have to update it regularly, maybe clinic locations or schedules change, and you want to be able to open OneDrive and make those changes and students see that in real time, then having the link inside of Canvas will allow that to occur. Great questions. Any others? I'm gonna check off that pages are covered. I will say your front page. So your front page is what becomes your home page. Just if you don't have your front page set, then pages is not even an option for the home page. That's how Canvas works. In your academic shell, your front page is this wonderful welcome page that's already been formatted for you. And it's really one of the most important places that a student arrives to learn about what you're planning to teach and get them hooked on learning what you have to teach them. So I'm going to show you, I'm looking for pages. Click on pages, you'll see front page at the top, and it's the same thing. That's what a front page does. It takes the place of this landing list and it has them land here instead. And then you have to click a button to see the whole list. So that's the difference there. All right, the next area I want to talk about is settings. And this is settings in detail. Really quick before we jump into there though, I do want to show everyone the People tab. So People is where you will handle creating groups. And we will talk about that in a later session, specifically with working with groups and assignments that'll go together. But this is really where you do it. You've got your groups tab and you can create a group set, as well as you can create additional group sets here and it will make a new tab. This is also where you can add people to your course. So when you click the plus people button with their email address, you can add them in any of the given roles. Now, I will say that there is some information in our HPS resource course, and then I just sent out a semester start checklist with those roles defined for you in case you want to know some of the pros and cons of how you would choose to enroll someone. Now, keep in mind, if you are an instructor of record or an official TA or student, all of the enrollments in Canvas will be handled by Banner, just like they were in Blackboard. You still aren't going to have to manage that piece of it. This is just for the extra I want to share with a colleague, or maybe I have somebody who is not a co-teacher, maybe from another health profession school who just comes in to be sort of a guest, and you can give them these roles. So I'm going to say cancel. And I'm going to jump to my settings. So that's really, we took a little detour there on people, but settings is where it's at. So this first tab, you're going to notice we have 5. This first tab has a lot of stuff going on, so I'm going to skip this. I'm going to cover the 4 simple ones first, and then I'm going to come back and end with these details. So I'm going to look at the second section. We were just here at the beginning of today's session talking about cross-listing, and this is where that occurs. You can also create additional sections. So if you teach a lab, some students come on Tuesdays, some on Wednesdays, you can make 2 different sections here, and you'll be able to have that extra layer of management, and you can add your students to them. The navigation area, this is an important one. Your academic shell comes with a pretty straightforward, simplistic navigation already done for you, and I can show you the student view. You can see it's pretty short. That's what our goal is. You want to make your navigation as short as possible, only give them links to what they absolutely need. But you'll see in your sandbox, you have all kinds of stuff. So to change this, you're basically going to drag and drop the items below, drag items here from students. So just drag and drop it at the bottom. Doesn't even matter what order, and you just keep doing that. And then at the bottom, you click save, and oh, I'm in student view. So now it's mad at me. That's okay. I can get back. I'm gonna go back to my dashboard. I'm gonna go back into my sandbox. And there was a great lesson. Don't do that. I'm gonna do it again. If anything happens before I've clicked save, just like if you're working in Word, you lose your work. Okay, save. And then you can see I've kind of started to clean up what I'm seeing over here. The 4th tab is apps. Now, you're already going to have a variety of institution provided access to these. You can, however, click this little unassuming folder link that's right here next to see some LTI tools that work great with Canvas. If you click that, it's going to take you to a website, slowly but surely, the Education App Center, and you can read more and search for different apps that you might be interested in. Okay, so I like to point out that really, really tiny little link, because again, looking at it inside of Canvas, it does give you some brief information, but maybe not as much as you would want. And then the last tab here, these feature options. So the way Canvas works is they decide they're going to make some improvements to their system. They put them in the features option where users can turn them on or off and try them out. And then at some point in the future, they might be worked into what's part of the default system. So this is a constantly changing area with their releases. Okay, I'm going to jump back over to course details. So what I just did was I just talked about these last 4 points, and then I saved the best for last. So this course details is where you really have total control over how your course behaves. You're going to get to choose the image that shows up on your dashboard. So I'm going to come over here and show you my dashboard. And as part of my homework, I'm going to add some images to my RSO, but nursing was on Monday and I already did my homework for them. So I have, this lovely vintage nursing picture for these 2 options. And then I put Blackboard. And what this does for me and your students is when you pick a content specific image for your dashboard, it just helps them find their courses a little bit easier. So that's really the benefit, not just to make it look nice. So you basically are just going to click choose, upload what you want, or you can search the database of available options. You can make edits to your name of your course, but it will come with the official name from the registrar. You can scroll down and it's going to have the sub account for the school you teach in. It's going to have the term for the term that's happening that your course belongs to. And then you're going to see that by default, it says participation is going to be related to the term that is set. Now, this is important to recognize that the academic summer 2021 starts May 17th through, I do believe, August 13th. And most of you are going to actually be having class starting May 10th. And most of you are probably going to even want to give your students more customized access, either early or late. So you're going to choose to change it from term to course. And these instructions went out in an email yesterday for that semester start checklist. But you're basically going to choose course, and then you will select what date that you want them to actually have access. So I'm going to change mine to the 10th. And then at the end, I'm going to say August 13th. And I just chose those randomly as an example. I can put whatever I want in there. And then you've got two checkboxes. Do you want to restrict the students from viewing the course before this date? Yes or no? Or do you want to restrict them from viewing it after the course date? So typically at the end of the course date, they will have read-only access unless you check this box. They will still be able to go in and look at things and study for, upcoming boards or other needs that they might, maybe they're taking a more advanced course and they want to refresh. Now it's important to know this does not control the fact that your course still needs to be published, which is the last session of this series. And it's just one single button on the home page. I'm going to leave student view in my academic shell just to show you the difference. I'm going to have to click this publish button. So 2 layers. You need to set your course participation dates, so when they can get started, and then you actually need to publish the course so that they can see it. Okay, you're going to have 2 gigs file size. You can launch SpeedGrader filtered by student group. It's just one way to maybe, organize how you're viewing SpeedGrader, or turn that off. This is where you're going to enable a grading scheme. So I'm going to click Set Grading Scheme, and I'm going to choose Select Another. This is the default one. I'm going to select another, and I'm going to choose the one that Adela created for the University of Incarnate Word. And it's a little bit different, and I'm going to say Use this grading standard, and I'm going to say Done. Now, let's say that neither the default or Adela's work for me. That's no problem. I can come in and say select another. Actually, that's not true. I'm going to say cancel. I'm going to say manage grading schemes. And then I can come in here and add my own, and I can change it to be whatever I would like. You can delete some of them. You can add more. So I'm going to cancel this and get out of this area though, because I don't really want to do that. So yes, you control. And then what that grading scheme will do is your final course grade in the grade book will apply to the scheme that you selected and show students their letter grade. Okay, we're going to scroll down a little bit more before we're wrapping up and want to click the more options. So this is a very unassuming link, but it does a lot. It is going to allow you to decide if you want recent announcements to show on your homepage, and you can select how many, up to 15. I actually don't want that feature. I'm going to turn it off. You can choose to let students attach files to discussions, create their own discussion topics, let them edit or delete their posts. Again, thinking about how you want students to be able to behave in the course is what you need to determine here. We're going to want to make sure that my hide totals in the grade summary is not hidden, right? I don't want that check mark, or my students can't see their total grades. or maybe you don't want them to see them, and then you would want to check. Now, the hide grade distribution graphs from students. This is one of the unusual features of Canvas. Your students, when they do an assignment and have a grade, they can see the distribution for the whole class, unless you have this checked. So if you don't want your grade distributions for the entire course displayed to every student, make sure that you turn this on to hide it. And then again, disable comments on announcements if you don't want them to be able to make comments. This last feature, your pages will talk about next week. You'll build content on those pages, just like any web page on the internet. You get to control what it looks like and what it contains. You can open those up to serve as wikis and allow other people besides teachers to be able to edit. Now, if you're running a course where maybe it's you and a couple of students, maybe a capstone, and it's going to be a collaborative effort, this may be a default where you want to change it to students can edit pages by default. But for most use cases, you're going to want to leave this alone, and you do have the option to control this feature on each page you create. So you could make one wiki page open to everyone and have everything else locked down. So just like navigation, you're going to want to make sure you update course details to save anything you do here, and then it will apply and you can keep going about your business. So all of these and some links to instructions are included under this topic here. And now like I'd said at the beginning of this recording and session, you guys, this is the most information dense of all the sessions, just because there's so many little options that you get control of in Canvas. And I want to make sure that you're aware of how you can, influence the behaviors of your course. So I am not in a rush. I will stick around to answer questions. What do you guys have on your minds? I'm hoping silence is good.
Oh, I didn't know I was in space. Sorry about that. I just had a question. I think you went over it earlier, but is there a spot where we can see the previous instructional video? Because I missed the introduction course.
Absolutely. So this, I'm going to be sending out a follow-up email, and it will have the link. If you have an invitation to the session and you open that calendar, it's also at the top of the page. It says YouTube recordings and asynchronous resource. This is the asynchronous resource. And so this topic was last week, and everything is basically laid out that I covered, ending in the video.
Oh, okay, excellent. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, this is all a lot of information to absorb in an hour. So most people have to go back and review when they get started working. It's just the nature of a lot of information. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording and